Good day everyone, so welcome to part 2 of my little Asha video series where we actually graffiti Kokomi's house and do a bit of out of bounds exploration. So for this video, what I've got lined up for you is a bit of a quick tour on the southern side of the Sumru Desert. Oh, lots of S's there. And then we'll look at Leeway Sumru, the little area that seems to be in the ocean but actually has a bit of landmass. And then finally we'll go to Kokomi's place and just have a bit of fun. So yeah, here we are on the southern side of the Sumra Desert. Normally you can't see this place, even from within the game, but it's so cool that to know that out there is such a huge, large playable area. And as I remarked in my previous video, it's such a shame that none of this is playable, even if only for like a limited time event, or if you had like boats and jet skis that you could race, or some sort of bike that allows you to traverse through the desert, so you can have a special overworld area and then you can ride here, multiplayer, Mario Kart style. I mean, the Genshin devs, they thought that it's such a good idea to put all these cool ideas in Miliastra, but bring some of those ideas over to the actual Genshin game. And the thing is, it won't even make the game bloated in any sense, because I don't know if a lot of you know this, but sometimes when you do like a story quest, you'll be transported into what seems like the overworld, but only a short section of it. So you'll have like a very tiny little Paimon barrier around you. But actually, that's not a special domain or anything. That is still the actual overworld that you're used to. It's just that everything in the game has been unloaded. So it's kind of a bit of a special trick to kind of save a lot of space. So you wouldn't need to download anything extra or really like any additional assets. And as you can see, look how beautiful and awesome this place is. It's so expansive, and it's nice to see a different perspective on Sumeru from the southern side. You can see there's a little bit of a map areas and so on. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to show. And you can also see the Genshin devs have all sorts of weird and cool things like out of bounds. There's this area in the middle of the sea. I don't know why they modeled it the way they did, but you can stand there. There's so many questions that I often have to ask about what's happening out of bounds. But regardless, one of the more fun questions to ask is what happens to all of these ships that are out of bounds in Port Osmos? Well, here's the thing. They've got NPCs on board, and you can't see the NPCs if you're on the shores there at Port Osmos. I'm losing my tongue over there. But what you can see is when you get on the boat on the ship that they are here, and it's kind of weird how they've been modeled, because if you look at those two academic researchers, nobody would notice them. Nobody would even know that they're there. Except people like me, which is, and there's no way to interact with these people. Even if you undo the time freeze glitch here in the background, it doesn't matter. You can't interact with them. It's so weird how Hoya does this. I understand that the boats themselves are actually placeholders, and you've seen these boats like across the map and so on, but it's just so weird that they're actually populated by NPCs. Look, you can't see anything. It's like at this distance, nothing, nothing, nothing. Boom. Now you can see the head of someone. It really boggles my mind. In any case, we're going to graffiti the boats because it's funny. Okay, so the reason it actually does that, why you need to be right next to a boat to do the graffiti, is because when you break out of the Paimon barrier, and I didn't explain this in a previous video, you're not actually just like going beyond the Paimon barrier. There are actually two glitches that are in effect here. Essentially, we put the game in a state that's called the time-free state. So this is where all projectiles look like they're freezing. The enemies can't hit you. You've got immunity to being hit, but you can hit the enemies and so on. And it seems like everything in the overworld stops. It's literally called time freeze. Now you can have time freeze in something like the Serenity Pot, but then the Paimon barrier is still active. Paimon can still stop you. So these two states, the Paimon barrier and the time freeze, they're two different. Like being able to go outside of the Paimon barrier and having the time freeze glitch are actually two separate glitches. I know even amongst glitches, they kind of like experience glitches, they kind of get the two confused. And we know this because of other glitches that I'm not going to mention, but there are some very powerful other glitches in the game that allows you to play with, like, for instance, no ping and stuff like that, 0 milliseconds and such. And we know from a lot of glitches and interactions how these kind of mechanics and dynamics work, and that's just how you kind of figure out the game. But certainly Hoyo has done a lot to ruin our fun in the past, but let me not get into that. Okay, so here's the southern side between Leeway and Sumeru. You don't see this area. Well, you can see parts of it if you really go far north, but because Hoyo's really put nothing there, a lot of players won't even know that there's like two waterfall areas or like two waterfalls bridging between the left and the right, which is kind of crazy. And then here at the southern tip of Leeway, you'll see in just a moment, there's that famous house that's always out of bounds, and it's been that I think that house has been there in Leeway since 1.2, since I started like playing the game in 1.0. I think that house, that thing, it's been there since forever, and I don't know why it just puts this random house in the middle of nowhere. But you can see this place is not just full of water. There's actual land here, apart from the textures here that you just walk and face through because they're just meant to be textures and placeholders. It's actually kind of interesting that I think the developers themselves have intended that this will be a future playable area. Maybe some sort of intermediate port, I've got no idea, or it might just purely be for testing. We've got no idea, but this definitely does seem a bit too deliberately placed to just be random. But I might get that wrong, because it might be that the developers had some intention and then later on they're like, okay, no, just scrap the whole thing, and then they just remodel it. But in any case, this just gives you a bit of a sense for what happens on this side of the world as well. I know not a lot of people actually cover this, and typically when people cover out of bounds, they always want to do the newest area. So I just thought it might be good to give people a bit of a tour. Right. The one thing that you'll notice about these out of bounds places is just how horrible the geometry is. I can't explain it, but what I do know is that coming together in the future, it's probably going to be really, really gorgeous. It does also make me question, because apparently in lore, between Port Osmos and Watatsumi Island, there's supposed to be this area where the Electro Dragon is, and there's ships that are being wrecked and stuff. So I don't know whatever happened to that like thread of lore. Maybe someone can let me know in the comment section. In any case, let's go to Watatsumi Island. So this is the cool thing that I wish Hoya would do. When a player reaches 80% map completion, give us gadgets, give us other ways of traversing, because in that sense you've already explored everything. You've already done the whole stamina expansion and stuff like that. So give us something like an Asha that allows you to make the playable area a bit more dynamic, and you'll see what I mean by that in just a bit. I just have to do what I promised in the beginning of both of these videos. We just have to really just graffiti Kokomi's home, because why not? It's pretty fun. But yeah, so the cool thing that I've done in the past is, whenever we've had infinite Mualani or infinite Shilonan roller skates and stuff, I always come here to Watatsumi Island, because the area below seems like such a good place for you to do like racing or to just surf across. I mean, Watatsumi is such a great place, and it's such a shame that they couldn't have done more with Kokomi's like walking on water passive, because you could then like imagine Kokomi could swim like an actual like a jet stream. I don't know what this. I think it's Floatzel, that Pokemon. You just swim through. It's like jet streams, and then you dive out of the water and you do some twirls in the air, like on Kokomi's trailer. I just wish the Genshin devs would be a bit more ambitious, but it is what it is. So you know what? We are going to be ambitious, because as you saw there at the bottom of the screen, I've got my full phlogiston bar, and contrary to popular belief, you can use phlogiston outside of Natlan, although you do need to be in a special state like this, because if you're not, then the game will just immediately register it as being not a Natlan, and then obviously you can't do it. But look at this. You can now properly surf, and wouldn't this be cool as an event in Genshin where you get a bunch of Ashas, and then once again, like Mario style type of karting, you do a bit of races here in Watatsumi Island. You use the little spider Asha to climb certain obstacles. Why do we need Meliastra when you've got an overworld that actually has the potential for some really fun and interesting interactions, as well as paying homage to people that have already explored it and giving us a new reason to come back and just re-experience some of the older content? I think that's the type of effort I would have definitely preferred Genshin do, because ultimately the game is about the characters, it is about the journey. So now when you go to Meliastra, it's like, Okay, it's like, but what about the journey aspect? This is like, okay, we visited this place and now it's kind of over. I mean, maybe that is the philosophy that the Genshin developers have, but you can certainly see from my side how much fun and different it is to be able to explore this place with something like an Asha. Perhaps I'll have a bunch of Kanich mains in the chat being like, oh my god, you just need to get Kanich, but look, Asha is even better because you power creep Farina, you power creep everything in Natlan as well, and you just have all of this lateral and beautiful movement. So it's pretty good. I say that, and then Asha just can't climb up a hill or up something. In any case, look, yeah. For me, doing these sorts of little out of bounds videos is it's a the technical challenge of doing the glitches always fun, and then b just experiencing the game in a bit of a fun way. I've made the video I think yesterday or 2 days ago where I talked about the very fact that people just hop from gachas to gachas and it's never ever satisfying. And I think this is the thing that's so crazy for me about Genshin. It can be satisfying. There are so many cool ways of playing. It's just you need to enable it as developers. Like doing what we do here, you can't do this in Honkai Star Rail. You can't do this in Honkai Impact Third. You can certainly do it in Wuthering Waves. Do it Night Abyss is very, very clunky in my opinion. And then there are a ton of other gacha games that I do not even care for playing because I think playing non-gacha games like Clear Obscure and some other cool games, those are actually worth way more time, but separate topic. But yeah, so it's just like Genshin itself, what I'm really trying to say is has got this unique and awesome way it's been put together. Yes, there's a bit of clunkiness to it, the overworld design, and even the way admitting they didn't know what the hell they were doing when they designed the overworld. But there is a beautiful charm, and I think it's such a shame that we can't make more of it. We always have to invent new crap, new stuff to put in the inventory, instead of actually building on the foundations. It's never complete in that sense, which is a bit of a shame because look at this. I mean, being able to spider Asha here on Kokomi's house and then just like spray paint the pearl. I know the developers, or if they ever looked at this footage, they would just be like screaming and pulling their hair out, being like, how the hell and what the hell is this person doing? But this is the type of fun that is not curated. It's a type of fun where you make the game your own, and that's just kind of really what I enjoy. And I enjoy doing it with my little Kokomi. So here we go. We now have Asha here as well. We've had a Koholosaurus here. We've had a Cucosaur here in Natlan. I don't think you can have the Tankosaurus here. And the other Saurians, I'm not really that interested in them. Oh yeah, and the other one from the Children of Echoes, I don't think you'll be able to get them here as well. But in any case, regardless, I've been having a ton of fun, and I do anticipate in the future Hoyo patching out all of these glitches. I don't think it's actually that difficult for him to patch it, but as long as we can have a bit of fun, I want to share it, share a bit of joy, and also to share with you why I sometimes have certain ideas about the directionality of the game and stuff. Even the idea that you can censor characters with Asha. I mean, I can't see Kokomi's butt, for example, so that's also a thing. I don't know why I'm putting this in a video. It's fun. Alright guys, I think that's been enough for these two videos. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it till this far, I really appreciate it. And that you let me know what you think about all of this goofiness. Thank you so much. Cheers.